All right, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, welcome to the farmhouse. If you've ever heard me refer to this place, this is it. So when you're trying to hit $1 million months, one of the most important things that you need to focus on, as we've talked about on this channel many times, is propaganda creation. A lot of propaganda nowadays, especially for personal brands, or really anybody for that matter with products and services, is done on podcasts. And when you go into a podcast, obviously there's a lot of intention for clip farming. You know, you're going on there, trying to get some clips, but you kind of let the conversation free flow. A lot of you guys aren't necessarily extremely intentional about the clips that you're trying to generate to help aid your sales process from the perspective of propaganda. So keep in mind, what do I mean when I say that? Well, if I get somebody that books a call, prior to them showing up to that call, I can hammer them with a specific piece of content, ideally 15 to 20 times. I want 15 to 20 different pieces of content in front of that individual before they show up to a call. That content shouldn't be random. You know, it shouldn't just be some shit you clipped out of a podcast that sounds decent. It should be well thought through. It should be thought through from the perspective of what is going to increase the probability of purchase, what's going to shorten that sales cycle, what's going to turn my salespeople into cashiers. And we can think about this from a perspective of every stage of where propaganda can be used, both before direct response, after direct response, as we just talked about as an example, post-purchase. There's all kinds of places we can plug in propaganda, is my point. We're going to go do a podcast here in the farmhouse, and again, I'm going to show you the clip and then an analysis of where it's going to be used inside of my propaganda machine. And ideally, I'm going to inspire you to be both very intentional the next time you go film something like this and give you some examples firsthand from the boy himself. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe, like the video, comment, and let's go get this podcast done. All right, so the podcast went great. By the way, welcome to the balcony. Just to be clear, we've done this before with a Fresh and Fit episode. We're gonna do it again right now with this podcast. This podcast was much more aligned towards my agency propaganda machine that I'm gonna be able to use it for. I was able to talk about $1 million months. I was able to talk a lot about A players and like all the different variables that, once again, ideal agency owner clients need to know. I was even able to talk about firing clients, expectations. This fits perfectly in the 4 quadrants that I constantly talk about. Questions that come from those questions, expectations, and objections. Again, when you're trying to get $1 million months, propaganda is one of the most important things. So this content specifically, a lot higher level for the revenue I'm gonna be able to generate as a result of this specific set of propaganda clips. So again, just to be clear, if you're new to this type of video, we are going to watch a clip and then I'm gonna explain where and how I'm gonna use it inside of my propaganda machine. As an example, like somebody books a call, they're gonna see this content prior to them talking to us on the phone. Somebody talked to us on the phone, maybe we use it as a clip for after they talk to us but haven't closed yet. You know, we'll go through where we're gonna place it and once again, why it's gonna work. So without further ado, let's watch clip number 1. Okay, so to be clear guys, now we're gonna watch clip number 1. Okay, so when I come in as a marketing agency into a deal, we charge a rev share based on net from actions that are trackable back to us, okay? So the game of hitting $1 million months is actually to get them to $1 million in profit from actions that are trackable back to us. Okay, so to be clear, like, yeah, I need their profit margins to be favorable to that outcome being like, you know, good. To be clear, I'll give you a great example. Like I had this guy, he had about 20% margins, okay? This guy was already doing anywhere from like 500K to $1 million a month organically, but none of it was from paid ads. So we came in and we were like, we can probably tack on another $1 million a month, maybe more than that, just based on the price, based on the fact that he's already got momentum, based on the fact he's already an industry leader for what he does. But I mean, we started closing deals and like, then they revealed to me, you know, hey, a lot of this, by the way, doesn't have a significant margin on it. And to be clear, like when we initially vetted out that deal and that relationship, dude, the guy didn't make it seem that way at all. He made it seem like he was upwards of like 70% margins, you know? He's even in a country, to be clear, where like it's a tax haven. You know, so I'm thinking like this guy cares so much about his margins, he's living like, you know, one of these third world places to save on taxes. So yeah, anyway, when we find out it's 20%, like we got rid of that deal in like 2 months from there because once again, like mathematically for us to get paid what we want to get paid out of a deal, which is 100K a month, hey dude, just probability wise suck. Most of the people that we work with have margins that are at least 50% or greater. Okay, so for this first clip, once again, I love this podcast because it helped me so much with clip farming specifically for agencies and what I'm gonna be able to use it for when it comes to generating clients that I can get to $1 million months that can pay me big rev shares. I start off the clip by explaining how we get paid. I explain that we get paid on rev shares net actions trackable back to us. I then explain that math with a story about how I fired a client for lowering our probabilities of being able to make them money and lowering our probabilities to get paid off the rev share. In that story, I specifically break down the components of how we use financial models in order to see clearly how much we need to spend in order to make X out the other side. So it demonstrates a lot. It demonstrates, first of all, our willingness to fire and refund the wrong deals. It explains our pricing model in more detail through a perspective of a story when, once again, we fired the wrong person. It demonstrates our willingness to like stiff arm the wrong deals and get the turds out of our client roster. You know, we don't want to work with people that are going to do that. It also demonstrates, when I say our expertise from a perspective of like being willing to control the deal, that's what people need us for. Like, we tell them what to do, they don't need to tell us what to do, because at the end of the day, like, that's what you hire experts for. So we not only demonstrated that through this clip, but we also do it from a perspective of financial modeling to back up like why we're making the decisions that we're doing. It's not opinion, no, it's literally just math in that example. I also think that very few, I technically know this, I don't think this, there's so few people that are marketers and agencies that exist out there right now that do any kind of financial modeling. It's one of the number one things that I teach all my agency owner students. So again, when I am getting in front of people who are considering us helping them hit their $1 million months as a marketing agency doing hands-on deals, I've talked about this before, it's such a particular type of person and the circumstances have to be like so extremely aligned and perfect for us to have that probability exist. 0.1% of businesses hit $1 million months. So at the end of the day, like, even if everything's perfect, if that client lowers our probability just based on unwillingness to spend and going against the math, like, we're firing them. So dude, I love that clip. That's gonna help me so much when it comes to my propaganda machine. Where I'm gonna use it, I'm very probable to use that type of clip after somebody books a call or like fills out an application to work with our marketing agency, which by the way, you can find in the link in the description of this video if you wanna apply and see if you can, work with us. But to be clear, you'll apply, you'll then see clips like that if you're qualified. And dude, we'll even show you clips like that like after you talk to us on the phone, because generally we don't do like one call closes, like that's rare with our type of agency client, because again, generally there's a lot of stuff they have to do after even they say yes that we won't take their money until they actually do. So anyway, let's go to the next clip.
What are the things in terms of staff that you look at?
Dude, yeah, great question. A players. I, and any A player would agree with this, fucking hate B and C players, okay? B and C players are like cancers within organizations. They slow everything down, they're highly political. What do I mean by political, right? I mean, like, they'll like go snitch on you if you're pressing them, and they'll be like, hey, this guy's being an egotistical asshole or something, And in reality, it's like Michael Jordan, if you've ever watched any of his interviews that he's done, like after he's well retired, he'll say things like, man, people might call me an asshole, but like, I'm trying to win fucking championships, dude. I'm trying to actualize on potential. I'm trying to push people to, a high level of performance. Yeah. And dude, B and C players hate being impressed. Like, okay, so like when we come into an organization, we just, it's really easy to tell, right? When somebody else is operating at a high level versus when the people that you meet and talk to are operating at these like fucking turtle speeds, highly politicized individuals, and like don't really have a lot going for them. So without exaggeration, we'll go into their organizations and like secret shop their sales teams, like try to get in contact with their customer service divisions, literally try to like interview collectively, like vet for different scenario-based problems that they might be having that could indicate low talent levels. Okay, so for this clip this, man, I love A players. I love working with people that are high level. There's nothing an A player likes better than working with people who are at their same level or greater that like bring potential out of them. A players hate B and C players. One of the most common things that we see in businesses that are stuck at a couple $100,000 a month, like in some instances, if they've been holed up there for a few years, it's generally because they got a bunch of turds in their staff, and that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest culprits, if you will, that prevents businesses from making a lot more money than they otherwise could. Lack of great staff members. So if we come into a deal, like we fired clients before that just have B and C players in their organization that hold back us as an A player from making a lot of money. B and C players are like highly political, What I mean is they're like bureaucratic, they slow everything down, they hate being held accountable, they hate speed. There's always a reason like not to do something rather than just bias towards action. Hate those kind of deals. So again, we don't want those kind of deals, and we want people who are willing to like understand, like, dude, if we have a client or somebody who's considering working with us that has that level of staff, like we want them to know like we not only fit in, we fucking love that shit, and if once again they don't have that type of staff, we won't tolerate that shit. That's the expectation we're trying to set in this clip. So again, pre-call, post-call, I'd use it for both. Let's watch the next one. Look at it like this, right? You take a company from $300K a month to $1 million a month. That's 3 times the volume they were dealing with before. What else happens besides an increase in revenue when you do that?
It's just gonna break their procedures if they're not super tight.
Well, everything 3X is in speed. Problems amplify by 3x. Quantity of customer service things increase by 3x. Refunds increase by 3x. Once again, just like quantity of things that the salespeople are gonna have to do, quantity of people the salespeople are gonna have to follow up with, time that the sales management's gonna have to review different calls if they're doing that, which they should. All these different little things start to just fucking compound, dude. And keep in mind, like, we're not just trying to get to $1 million a month gross, dude. We're trying to push it well above that to a couple million a month, ideally. All right, so first of all, I probably wouldn't run that full thing. I'd probably tell my team to clip it down to like really just the first half, because it's a good expectation piece of content where, dude, when we start really moving fast, and I mean, to be clear, like, it might sound a little ridiculous, but going from 300K to over $1 million a month, like, it can happen really quick. And when it does, everything amplifies, just like I explained in the video. So from an expectations perspective, like, sometimes that can get overwhelming. You know, if you're not used to like as an example, if you're just not doing the math, right? And you see like 3 times the amount of refunds after you've tripled your fucking business's revenue. Or if you see like 3 times the amount of customer service issues or like just questions. If you see, obviously, the good things, like 3 times the volume of sales, you know, 3 times the amount of revenue coming into the business. Like, there's good things and bad things that amplify, but you can't get like sidetracked in thinking that the bad things amplifying is that being an indication that things are bad. Because again, like, relative to the statistical percentage that they were prior, they're the exact same. It's just a greater quantity, and vice versa for the good things. Again, a great thing, obviously, for the good things to amplify, but you'd be surprised, like, a lot of people that we've helped scale, they'll kind of get like almost like sidetracked or confused as to those bad things amplifying at the same time, almost as if they're meant to stay the exact same. So a good expectation video. Again, probably wouldn't use the second half. If I did use the second half, I'd probably clip it out as its own video. Again, from like a staffing expectation perspective, where to use it, you're gonna hear me say this in almost every single one of these clips because they're all perfect for this shit. Pre-call, post-call. There's a few of these, to be clear, that I would also use to attract clientele. I'm a big fan of using content prior to direct response, and I think I could get a lot of usage out of these before my actual direct response would even find the person to, you know, solicit a potential agency relationship. So let's watch the next clip.
How do you do that internally with your company?
What do you mean, with A players?
Headhunting, getting A players in.
Dude, great question. First of all, whenever you see an A player out in the wild, it's like you recruit them, you know? You immediately, no matter what, like, get in contact, you know, just network essentially, and get that person in communication with you. And you'd be amazed. Like, I find it really easy as an A player myself to like attract other A players within my organization, because, you know, A players, like, look at once again what they care about, right? It's growth, revenue, right? I want personal development. I want accountability. You know, I want to just expand. You know, I want more, and I want to be held accountable to do more. And it's a great example, once again, like, one of my favorite things, I go courtside to the basketball games here in Miami all the time, and I intentionally sit by the player benches. Okay, it's one of my favorite things to do, to both talk shit to the away team, but to also like literally, because you could like hear them talking shit. Like, you could like watch them in real time. Dude, in some of these teams, like, they have the best of the best, okay? Because they're in the NBA in the first place. Dude, the level in which they hold each other accountable, and they all fucking love it, dude. Like, they love it, you know? And that's my point, is like, it's very easy, you know, to go out there and just be yourself fully when you're an A player, and find immediately like almost attraction from other people who are like you, wanting to connect, okay? And then, to be fair, a lot of it's done via social media nowadays. So it's like, you and I connect on social after this, right? It's like, well, you'll see what I got going on in my life, I'll see what you got going on in your life, and we'll just kind of find opportunities to do something, you know, if something ever comes up. And that's kind of how it goes nowadays, you know? Like, A players are rarely in between things.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? They're usually like fully balls deep in something that is taking a lot from them, you know, because they're generally fully committed to whatever they do. But occasionally they get fucked, you know, or occasionally something's not as appealing as it used to be, and like, those transition moments are the moments you want to,
that's where you strike.
You know, fucking, try to jump in and be like, okay, so clip 4 demonstrates a really good perspective to maintain as an executive trying to recruit and staff A players. Meaning, as soon as you find them, you fucking hire them in. This is obviously biased for me because I consider myself, my organization, A player talent. So when somebody sees us, I want them to have that perspective of immediate acquisition of talent. Obviously beneficial for us in retaining an agency relationship in this case. To be clear, you know, true, but I digress. Point being, it's meant to obviously influence the perspective when that opportunity comes up. And the opportunity will come up because we'll advertise the opportunity to come up. So we'd use this pre-direct response for sure. And then in addition to that, I would also definitely put this pre-call after somebody goes through an application process. Because again, you know, it helps frame the perspective of urgency to acquire talent. Okay, we'll watch clip 5. There's a really good book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. and it's a purple and yellow book with like a little bit of white on the cover if you ever look it up. I remember the author. But yeah, so listen to this, okay? So in this book, he talks about pebbles versus boulders, okay? And he talks about like pebbles being small, little insignificant shit that doesn't really get anything done, doesn't make an impact. In this case, when you look at it from a revenue perspective, like barely fucking makes any money at all. These are like monotonous tasks that, to be rather direct, don't even need to get done. But most people aren't comfortable ignoring those little things, you know? They actually get sidetracked and like focus on them. The boulders are the things that take significant amounts of effort, significant amounts of time, or sometimes, once again, just need like all of your attention and effort, even if it doesn't take a lot of effort and time, in order to move the boulder, okay? Peter Thiel, you know what Peter Thiel is? Yeah. Peter Thiel also talks about this, and he talked about it in the sense of what size problems you should focus on. He talked about it originally from a perspective of creating a moat, you know, like a competitive moat to avoid people being able to compete with you. He said, you should be focused on a problem of such significance that if anybody else would even consider putting attention on it, they'd be like, fuck that. You know, like that takes way too much. And like, this is like, as an example, like Elon Musk building fucking rockets that land themselves. You could look at the entire planet and be like, well, why didn't that happen sooner? Everybody who was in rockets looked at that and said, yeah, no fucking shot, you know, like we're not doing that shit. And anyway, my point being, like, that obviously creates a competitive moat, but more importantly, like, that's a great example of the boulders. You know, it's a great example of like the problems that matter. We're not building rockets or anything, you know, we're just making people money. But at the end of the day, like, same kind of logic. We try to actively teach and hold the staff accountable to not doing the little bullshit stuff that most organizations would think need done. Does that make sense? Okay, so clip 5, I love this from like a subconscious framing perspective. It's one of those examples of like an indirect piece of content for how I think it plays out successfully in the mind of somebody and like what it kind of develops into. We fucking hate clients that try to judge us on time and effort. A lot of what we do as marketers does not require excessive levels of time and effort. We are always essentially judged based on results and performance, which is how, without exaggeration, probably 90% of the people that we work with do judge us. They don't give a shit about how much time and effort we invest into something. Once again, it all just comes down to the amount of money that they make. And that's exactly how they should judge it. They also should want us focusing on the big problems at hand, not on like those small little fucking rinky-dink, like nothing problems. You know, they should be comfortable ignoring those things. So this is like twofold. We don't want them focused and telling us to do like little bullshit that doesn't actually move the needle and make them a lot of money. But at the same time, we also want to ensure that they understand like we're not going to do that. You know, we're only going to focus on the big things. So again, great pre-call framing. I'd also say again, after a call, we'd fucking hammer people with this type of content. Set the expectations, you know, handle potential objections when like things come up that we're just gonna flat out say, no, we're not doing that shit, you know? We want these people to have the right kind of frame. So we reference a book, a great book, by the way, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. We also reference Mr. Peter Thiel and some of the lessons that he leverages this same kind of philosophy from. It's just, dude, I mean, it's a fucking highly valuable lesson, but a rather indirect version of a framing piece of content that, as I mentioned, just kind of like develops into a belief system when somebody actually consumes this type of content, like thinks with it, you know? So anyway, we'll go over to clip 6.
Back to the idea of scaling your clients. So you vet them, you check out their numbers, you make sure everything's in order.
Yeah.
They're making whatever, 200K a month. What are the first steps you do to instill the journey towards $1 million?
Great question. Sometimes it's as simple as amplification. We had one of our inner circle members the other day. He's like, he wrote this long thread, essentially asking for analysis as to whether he should make change or not, but he didn't put the ROI. And I followed up, I just go, hey, what's the ROI on this? And he said, we're at a 7X right now. What do you think I told that guy?
Double down, spend
more. I said, dude, spend more fucking money. Like, you don't need to do anything else. Don't change a thing. He was asking like, what should I change? And I'm like, dude, you don't need to fucking optimize shit here. You need to spend more money. So like, to be clear, like sometimes it's genuinely that simple. Like we can come in and just be like, okay, like the funnel you got right now works. Like I just spend more money on it. A good example of things that aren't scalable, like DM strategies. Okay, so like one thing we see that some people do, and even when they're doing 100, 300K a month or more, is they'll drive traffic to their DMs and have like a fleet of setters in there. Okay, and some of these people, no joke, are working through like a couple hundred DMs a day. Yeah. And I tell them, I'm like, all right, let's say you're at 200K a month right now and we 5X that to hit $1 million gross. Could your team handle 5X the volume of DMs? And there's, well, so here's the thing, like, yes, if you're leveraging tech, 100%, and that's a great example of what I mean. Like, essentially the point I'm trying to make is, generally, we can come in and amplify something. Sometimes, like in your example, we have to come in and like add a tech component, or we have to like scrap whatever they're doing and do a whole new funnel and like wait a couple weeks or a month or so to get them to adapt. And then we can start the amplification process. But like the main name of the game, dude, is like, let's get to the amplification point. So simply put, Sometimes we have to come in and create a new funnel. Sometimes it's as simple as we need to amplify what they already got going. Sometimes we need to add to what they're already doing and then amplify. All right, hey, first of all, quick switch of environments. As you saw, the beautiful sunset out there was getting a little too dark, unfortunately, so welcome to my office. All right, to be clear, in this specific clip, this becomes a really good framing perspective because at the end of the day, one of the number one questions is what this guy asked. What are you gonna do when you first come into the business? I gave an example of one of the Inner Circle members that was saying, okay, I've got all these statistics. He wrote like this super fucking long message, essentially demonstrating like all these different statistics in his advertising and sales process, but he didn't include the ROAS. His ROAS was like 7x. And if he's watching this right now, his name's Brandon. Brandon would then follow up by saying, oh, well, it's not always 7x. You know, last week was 7x. It's normally 4x. And it's like, either way, dude, you fucking press the gas. You know, like you start the amplification process. And as simple as that might sound, like a lot of our ideal clients, they know that at the end of the day, like they haven't amplified, if ever. You know, they're kind of stuck at those like couple $100,000 months because they have been getting caught up in this like optimization game rather than the amplification game. Amplification game in itself is typically one of the first actions that we'll come in and take regardless of if we have to do something new, like I explained later in the clip. Sometimes, like I said, it's a new funnel, it's a video they have to film, it's you know, just again, amplification of an existing thing they've already got, they just haven't tried to scale, or that they've failed scaling in the past. We'd use this pre-call, we'd use this before our direct response advertising, we'd use this especially after a call. To be clear, it really just comes down to setting the right kind of frame in the mind of an ideal client for like, again, what are some of the first things we're actually gonna do? This, I could really use a post-call, but again, like pre-call is like really valuable here. If somebody would listen to this prior to getting onto us, prior to getting onto the phone with us, I mean, there's a tremendous probability that they're gonna understand more about, you know, why we're gonna propose what we're gonna propose. And it's just gonna make more sense. It's gonna make the sales process easier. It's gonna increase the probability of a close because they're already on the same page, on that same wavelength. Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Sometimes, dude, I had this client, they just did 1.25 last month. I got this client in July, okay? The advertiser that they had before me was so shit. We use that guy's name as a verb now for when things go wrong. We're like, oh, you got like blanked, you know? And this advertiser that I'm talking about that was doing a shit job before us coming in was optimizing for the qualified and unqualified applicants, not even scheduled calls. There were more unqualified people than qualified people, and 100% of those folks were getting sent back to the pixel. It was also a custom conversion that was being used. Super pro tip if you're an advertiser listening to this, custom conversions, you have a lower probability to get the people that you want because that's only data that's isolated to your business and your business only. When you leverage standard events can be used by all advertisers. They have more data per user on who's taken those specific actions in the past. So you naturally increase your probability to get a better conversion and lower cost per conversion when you optimize based on a standard event, especially for a qualified standard event for whatever that is for your business. Point is, just coming in and being like, what the fuck is this guy optimizing the campaign for unqualified and qualified applicants for? Dude, their cost per qualified call was like $400. Okay, like we came in, listen, we get the cost per qualified call. They had 3 levels of qualified, okay? Unqualified, slightly qualified, and what they called an action taker. Okay. Bro, we had the highest qualified, the action takers, we got the cost per qualified action taker call to $40-something. Okay, and we were spending money. We were spending like $150K within that first month on just that funnel. Okay, dude, point is like, what do you think that does for the revenue right away? Just having such a simple change.
So this clip, this is gonna be really helpful because it exposes the flaws of the existing advertisers. A lot of people at the end of the day who are already doing a couple $100K a month, if it's not organic and there's a combination of paid, or maybe it's all coming from paid, something's going wrong if you're only at a couple $100K a month, whether you believe it or not, you know? We expose the problems in clips like this that could be happening that an uneducated, unaware business owner is getting fucked with. Once again, they're oblivious to. I'll give you a great example. We had a guy, he actually came from our YouTube channel. We ended up not working with him because he was a little bit too far into tweaker mode. But anyway, this guy was stuck at $250K a month for like 3 years, okay? And he had an advertiser who like self-glorified himself as one of the best ever. He was very far from it. There was a tremendous amount of shit that this guy was doing horrendously, from like literally not using any copy in like newsfeed ads, as an example, you know? Optimizing with a lead standard event for a qualified, unqualified call, an unqualified, qualified applicant, and an opt-in literally all at the same time, creating like quadruple reporting, sending all that unqualified with the qualified back to the pixel, just a bunch of horrendous shit. I can go on. My point is though, the business owner didn't even know, because again, this advertiser self-glorified themselves as like the literal best. It was even in the guy's Instagram name. He described himself as like, I won't say it because it's gonna be too obvious, but again, just fucking horrendous best practices. But again, business owner under the illusion that everything was going right, even though they were stuck at $250K a month for 3 fucking years. Obviously things aren't going right, but they gotta be educated about like why and how they're not going right. So at the end of the day, a clip like this demonstrating like technical know-how helps educate and make aware the business owner to potential flaws within their organization. Usage-wise, in terms of where and how we'd use it, definitely pre-direct response, because this would lead to a higher probability of conversion in the direct response ads when they see an opportunity to apply. Again, just a heads up, by the way, you see a clip like that and you think your business is getting fucked on, there's 2 things you can do in the description of this video, including applying for the inner circle to become a member and getting one-on-one help from me, group calls, quarterly masterminds streamed in person, or you can watch the recordings of them if you can't make it, and joining into our group chat that we have with a bunch of rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. In addition to that, you can always apply to work with our marketing agency if you think you are also getting dunked on after listening to something like that. You know, there's a lot more circumstances you could be getting dunked on for. But anyway, I digress. Point being, dude, clips like this, they hit hard. An unaware person becomes aware that they're getting fucked. So really powerful. Let's go watch the next one.
What I do is marketing knobs. So like I can immediately amplify my shit like a millisecond. And like overnight, I can create new problems for the business. What's the new problems after you go from like damn near no qualified people on your calendar to like overnight? But overnight, their calendars were full. What do they have to do next?
To recruit more people.
How long does that take?
It takes fucking forever.
Yeah, so like we're talking a good like 3 to 4 week cycle there, just for them to start their recruiting. And they have high standards. That's why I love them. They have extremely high standards. They won't just hire because they need to hire. They will recruit intentionally and get the right people, put them through a rigorous training process, and then put them on calls. So that's like, in his organization, maybe like 3 to 6 weeks.
And that's even fast already.
To be clear, dude, I can fill their calendars overnight, and then to be clear, I can't do anything after that. So then I have to wait. You know, I have to wait 3 to 6 weeks until that gets solved. And then guess what? Well, then when the ball's back in my court, my shit's just marketing knobs again. I, without exaggeration, fill their calendar again as soon as those new people are on. And then what's that do again? You know, puts the ball back in his court. So when you have a lot of trust, to be clear, between your sales and marketing division, and you're doing a call funnel like that, they just determined we're going to hire indefinitely. You know, as long as Jeremy can continue just instantly filling calendars upon a new person coming in, there's no reason for us in any way, shape, or form to stop hiring, because we're creating problems in the business's revenue by not having consistently new salespeople that are ready to take more calls. And yeah, that's my point, is like, long story short, I generally need to come in, do something new, tweak something, amplify it, and then I kind of gotta wait. You know, the waiting game means my stuff's really fast. You know, the other stuff that can happen or that can be exposed as problems might be people problems. And then that's like a multi-week, sometimes multi-month solution that has to implement, you know, and that's where you just have to kind of chill and wait.
Okay, complex clip in the sense that I cover many things that I can technically point out for why this is effective. So I'll bullet point the first few and then I'll expand on the ones that I think are the most important. So first of all, it shows and demonstrates a very high level understanding of the dynamic of filling up a closing team's calendars and the kind of like consequences, what happens. You know, it also shows to the sales team a level of respect that, look, I understand that my job's technically easier than your job. Like, you've got to go hire a lot more people, and that takes a lot of time. That takes 3 to 6 weeks in this example that I provided in this clip. And at the end of the day, I close out the video, and this is kind of where I'll elaborate a little further, demonstrating that when a marketer can come in and successfully prove that they can fill the closer's calendars with qualified applicant, okay? Respect the sales team by filling it up with good people. And the sales team can trust the marketer that they can do that, you know, really quickly. The sales team then gets the confidence to be able to hire consistently, like forever. And again, if the marketer can consistently fulfill their responsibilities in their role to be able to do that again and again and again and again, you're perpetually hiring and therefore perpetually scaling, which is both twofold appealing to the sales teams, of course, which are the most important people in a lead generation deal for high ticket products or services, because the salespeople are like the gatekeepers for the revenue. My job is extremely important to bring qualified people who are well framed, ideally turning the salespeople into cashiers. But again, I mean, it's a dynamic there that is necessary to be respected by both parties, and those responsibilities have to be fulfilled to the highest extent. The other side of that twofold scenario is the business business owner. The business owner loves to see that when they put this duality in action, for one of the first times, sales and marketing is succinct, working together, not in conflict. Most organizations have sales and marketing divisions in conflict with one another. So when we can successfully articulate and demonstrate how we resolve that general conflict that occurs, and whether a business owner sees this clip and is framed successfully on whether we obviously operate with that perspective, they're typically going to try to see if they can work that out in their own sales and marketing operations first. And in most instances, they'll fail because, as I mentioned, it's the frame of the marketer, it's the frame of the salespeople as well. That duality existing, that yin and yang to work in duality in comparison to being in conflict all the time. So point being, I love this clip. This is an example of a very sophisticated piece of content that deals with a very specific high-level problem that I'm aware of inside of our higher level deals, that exceed $1 million months and that have very consistent scale. And again, just as one of those bullet points to kind of wrap this specific clip up, it showcases the high-level understanding of, once again, a sophisticated issue. It demonstrates what creates consistency when you are scaling up. And most businesses don't experience that level of consistency. So it also kind of creates this, this desire for man, I really want that too. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to create a lot of leverage in a relationship where you're trying to get somebody who's at a couple $100K a month to essentially create a big change, like bringing in a new marketer or a new marketing agency. There's a lot of risk there in making that decision. This type of clip helps soothe that risk and once again demonstrates our expertise that we can handle that and ensure with a high probability that they make it to the other side of that risk successfully. So let's go ahead and watch this next clip.
What are good offers? How do you spot good offers?
Okay, great question. So to be clear, that's why we love the 100 to 300K a month range. It's clear, we work with people all the time that do more than that too. But we have a lot of leverage in the deals where we get the 100 to 300K a month people. We can come in. We've found time and time again that the people with the best offers are already selling. We don't typically gamble on something that's new or untested or unproven. And we just, once again, we look at the math of the funnel. So when I say the math of the funnel, it's okay, well, if they are doing any paid advertising, cost per call being low, can be indicative that the market you're marketing to is very well received to whatever that messaging is. You get a really good retention rate on a BSL as an example. Same thing, shows the people you're targeting have that problem. If you get a BSL that has one of those drop-offs where people are barely even watching it for the first couple seconds, sure, you might need to change the first couple seconds of the BSL. It might not be indicative, the whole offer sucks. But tell you what, I've seen funnels with pretty shitty BSLs and terrible openings that's still in a strong market. That retention is damn near flat across the whole thing, meaning people stick the whole time.
Yeah.
Once again, salespeople this is a good one. You ready for this? This is a pro tip. If their sales team, in my opinion, sucks, but is still closing deals with strong statistics, I know it's good. Okay, I know it's real good.
Great clip, demonstrates who specifically we like to work with the most. Notice how at the very beginning of the clip, I express, look, we typically do really well with this demographic, but we also work with people who are far above that. Important to disclose. Otherwise, the people who are far above that think you only work with that specific demographic within that range. At the end of the day, just to be excessively transparent with you in this video that I'm talking to you in here, I have a lot of leverage in deals that are the 100 to 300K a month range. Those are the deals that, again, we can influence a strong level of expertise and control in. Those are the deals where we have a lot of influence to make change that's necessary to hit $1 million months. The people who are typically above that can be a lot more stuck in their ways. Again, a lot of the people who are above that, we still help all the time. I mean, one more thing on this, and I'll kind of close out with this. With the 100 to 300K a month people, when I say leverage, it's also easier to get rev shares off of people that are doing 100 to 300K a month. And we only want to do rev shares as a marketing agency. We want those incentives. There's a lot more leverage that the counterparty has, as an example, if they're already above $1 million a month. And it's easier to get a business that's at 100 to 300K a month to $1 million a month plus, in comparison to taking a business that's at $1 million a month to maybe $2 to $3 or $4 million a month. We still do that, to be clear, but again, it's just a more challenging dynamic going into the agency-client relationship with a really, really high revenue business already producing large sums of cash. So this type of clip demonstrates, again, an ideal client scenario. It also demonstrates, when I say ideal client scenario outside of just revenue, to be clear, I also mean the offer type. We want to ensure that we signal, to the right people with this type of content what an ideal client for us looks like, what some of those perfect client traits are, the right kind of scenarios, as somebody sees that they themselves and their business check these boxes and that they could work with higher level marketing agencies that really want to push their revenue up and come in as a marketing partner, it just lays the groundwork for the perfect, these are my guys, I can see that we're very compatible. This is like a good compatibility video to express an ideal condition that they know they meet, and again, then find themselves saying to themselves like, dude, this could work, Okay, let's go to the next one.
If I walk into a casino, that's why it's gambling. I am oblivious to the probabilities that are in my favor or against me. I am oblivious to the strategies that are necessary for me to implement to increase the probabilities in my favor. But I might walk in thinking, I got $1,000, like, I'll play some games and like maybe I can win some money. That's a good scenario. But I'm comfortable to lose it if I lose it. And because I don't have an edge, it's like I'm fucked. And once again, the probabilities are definitely not in my favor. I'm probable to lose. Advertising's kind of the same. It's like, if you've got the right ad strategies, if you've got the right funnel strategies, you got the right offers, you got the right team players, you got the right business executives, dude, those are all edges. Those things, those characteristics, those traits, those circumstances, they give you the edge that you need to have a high probability of spending money on ads and getting it to work.
Okay, so for this clip, I've talked about this on the Fresh and Fit podcast. If you haven't checked out that previous video, I did the same thing where I went on a podcast, came behind the scenes, demonstrated the clips that I pulled from it for my propaganda campaigns. Then I did the same explainer styles that I'm doing now. I also talked rather extensively on that podcast about this when it comes to comparing advertising to gambling. And I used the example of casinos. And at the end of the day, like when you're advertising, it's a risk. You have to have a test budget that's great enough to increase the probabilities in your favor that you're gonna win based on financial models and math. In addition to that though, you have to be willing to literally just burn that money in the instance that you lose it. The worst clients for us are the ones that are like really high pressure, that are gambling like the last of their dollars that they have, because they're in terrible financial positions, that have to have it work. Now to be clear, we have a really high probability to make an agency-client relationship work because again, we vet out and do the math ahead of time for whether it's excessively probable to work or not. We stack the odds with the right types of funnel strategies, the right types of advertising strategies, ensuring the right talent is within the organization already to again have a really high probability of success in an agency-client relationship. But at the end of the day, like you still have to operate with like a level of comfort knowing that the money you're spending on that agency relationship and on the advertising spend could vaporize and it's not gonna financially ruin you. I say that because again, from every client that we've had that has that kind of mindset and retains that perspective, dude, it creates like a level of comfort that's necessary to take the level of risk that they're taking. We don't take like small risks. We're not spending a couple $1,000s. Like generally people who work with us are at a minimum spending like $30,000 to $50,000 over a 30-day period of time with a new marketing agency they just engaged with. That is daunting to a person, once again, who's on like their last dollars, trying to risk like everything they have in order to, make it work with somebody that could, have a higher probability than somebody else to get it to work. But like, it's just a horrendously high pressure deal when we go into, like, we hate that. You know what I mean? The people who operate with a high level of confidence that, look, it could all vaporize and it's still not gonna financially ruin them, they operate with a level of certainty and confidence and calmness that dramatically increases the probability of the deal working out. I've seen it time and time again, and it's a necessary perspective that we not only seek, but demand from people that we work with. We will not work with somebody if they're in the opposite mindset of that, like scarcity, this is my last dollars, I'm betting it all on black and hoping it hits kind of perspective. We don't do that. And at the same time, just to also articulate the value of articulating it from a perspective of like gambling and a casino and talking about edge, it also demonstrates it with the right advertising strategies, the right funnel strategies, the right people, that you dramatically increase your edge, which is also a great framing technique inside of this, outside of the first part of what I explained. So I would use that in terms of where, definitely pre-direct response, post-direct response after they took the action, and after the call as well. This is a great framing, it's a great expectations video, and again, this is gonna like shift the beliefs of an individual for how they view advertising if they don't already think of it this way. Okay, so again, I hope you love watching these types of breakdowns. Every time I go on a podcast, I try to film a breakdown like this. I'll keep doing it. I think they're highly valuable to people, again, that are trying to make their advertising campaigns work better than they currently are now. All of this, by the way, just from a perspective of like where the propaganda fits in, are leveraged inside of my strategies, like the hammer them strategy, the tornado strategy. It is very effective when you are looking at how to increase increase show rates, how to warm people up, how to replicate the organic sales process. Again, just making direct response that much more effective than it already is. It works especially well with paid cold advertising and taking content, working it in, weaving it in at different stages of your sales process and your direct response part. I found so much benefit to this. So that's why I consistently share about it. That's why I consistently talk about it. It's super effective. If you struggle to come up with your own ideas, if you struggle to take action on this kind of stuff, you're wondering how to leverage it and use it for your own benefit and gain, I'd love to break it down in detail for you. I do so right now inside of my Inner Circle program. There's a lot of stuff, just to be clear, that I keep for obviously myself, for my clients, and then after I see it work there, I roll it out to my Inner Circle students. And they're all high-level people who are very probable and vetted for being people who take action. And then I see if it works across several industries, because the Inner Circle is not just like one demographic. It is many demographics in terms of the niches that they operate in, where they're physically located on Earth, and like what markets they're specifically targeting. We literally have people from all over the world that leverage these strategies at a high level and get my intimate, like one-on-one help, group coaching, come to masterminds and learn from us, have an ongoing group chat where they can ask questions to everybody else using the same stuff and get that perspective that's necessary. To be clear, I then roll this out after a solid several months, if not even a year plus, to my Master Internet Marketing students. And my Master Internet Marketing students, keep in mind, this is a broad demographic of people also from all over the world, but I don't have the ability to have like one-on-one help with them, and I don't have the ability to, get like as involved as I can with the Inner Circle students and my clients. So I generally roll things like this out to my Master Internet Marketing students after. And again, I mean, just to be very transparent with you, if you think I'm being detailed here, I'm leaving out all of the tactics, I'm leaving out all of the examples, like the literal examples of all my clients, all my Inner Circle students. I'm leaving out plenty of details that I exclusively teach inside, once again, my agency client relationships, my Inner Circle program, and then eventually my Master Internet Marketing program. So if you want truly high-level help and information and you see value in videos like this, first of all, just check out all the other videos on my channel. There's a lot of great stuff. Whole channel's dedicated to helping businesses hit $1 million months. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment something that you got out of it, and check out the Inner Circle in the description of this video. There's a link to apply. In addition to that, there's a link to apply for our marketing agency if you think you can work with us, once again, in an agency client relationship. And then you have my Master Internet Marketing program down there as well, which regardless of whether I'm sharing the most in detail, up to date, this is the best possible strategy on earth that you could use right now, I have to test that stuff out and make sure that it works across all these different industries first, really like fine tune it. And then to be fair, again, I hand it off to my Master Internet Marketing students. Those students still have the highest levels of information in terms of strategy, tactics, tools, softwares. And we do that class typically on an annual basis. So towards the tail end of this year, I believe around December, if not January of 2025, we'll be doing our next iteration of the Master Internet Marketing class. It'll be our 5th cohort. So I'll have definitive dates sometime in these, next several videos, just trying to determine when we can do it. But I generally teach a new Master Internet Marketing class whenever there is something that, happened out in the marketing world, or I've developed additional strategies, that require me to update the previous cohort of information, and just keep it fresh. So I think it's been about enough time, to be fair, with some of these strategies that I've talked about being tested at the highest levels and have significant levels of spend behind them in different industries, different locations, for me to be able to fine tune it here that much closer over these next couple months to being able to dish it out to my Master Internet Marketing students. So really excited to bring that to them. If you're watching this, again, I just kind of hinted at it. We'll be doing our next cohort here likely at the very beginning part of 2025. So I'm looking forward to that. Either way, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in another one. Bye.